felt that I could take time to do this morning. The next week, we will be execing bills, period, except for Tuesday. We have 2 recessed hearings, so on Tuesday, we will be executing 10 bills, starting at 11 o'clock in the morning. The reason I chose to start at 11 o'clock was because some of you are on subcommittees that perhaps have not reached, some of you will be on subcommittees that will not have reached conclusions on your bills, and so that period of time is open for subcommittee meetings. And then we will have our executive session begin at 11, and then as soon as we are finished, hopefully by 3 o'clock, we will continue the recessed hearings on the bills that we had to recess this morning. So Tuesday may be a late night. And then on Thursday, we will have more bills. I'm going to try to recess all the remainder bills on Thursday, and we'll start at 10:30 on Thursday. Again, allowing an hour and a half in the morning for last-minute subcommittee meetings. So that's basically it, but Thursday we will have 12 bills to accept. And as you are probably feeling, many of the bills that are coming down the road right now are probably our most difficult bills. So that's why we've waited to the end, and that's why we are allowing time for subcommittee meetings right up to the end. March 4th, I'm still trying to leave as a day when we will gather to do reports on the bills and so on, because they all have to be in on the 6th. They actually have to be submitted before noon on the 6th. So it has been a very, very unbelievably brief and crazy time. And we have a total of 47 bills. So we are one of the busiest committees. And so is Health and Human Services. And that's why our committee assistant is sort of running back and forth trying to get everything done. So we'll just have to handle it. All right, the first bill that we're going to exec is House Bill 1132, which is Representative Blatt's bill, and I understand he has an amendment to bring in, and also some guest speakers that he has invited to be here today.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to introduce the amendment, so I'll make the motion to amend HB 1132 FN with Amendment 0454.
Okay. Go ahead.
And I'd like to
Speak to your motion.
speak to the motion. What we've done with the amending language, which we have here in 1132, is to take one component of the original bill 1132, which dealt with distributing or gathering and compiling information from schools regarding security issues and schematic plans, and moving them from DOE to the Homeland Security Department of Safety. We all know the obvious reasons why this is necessary. But the bill on the other side, which dealt with the inventory of buildings in terms of mechanical systems, systems like HVAC systems and all that, has been removed. We determined through the hearing process that we were talking some costly amounts of money here, anywhere from 7.6 cents per square foot to 12 cents per square foot, and whether we're going to do random sampling of buildings and all that. I think some of that needs to be filtered out somewhat, and probably a study of some kind by this committee to really look at the inventory information is in line. But this bill, as you see in front of you right now, does some things, and I'd like to speak to it very briefly. The Department of Education will conduct a statewide school building inventory of and compile security information and gather building schematic floor plan diagrams. These are not blueprints, they're not engineered studies. They are the type of diagram you're going to see of your building that's oftentimes, like you see when you leave your classroom, when there's a fire drill on the wall, you'll see go this way or that way. Of course, we would hope that they would look somewhat to scale. but they would include certain components, which I'll get to in a few moments. The Department of Safety, Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services has developed, and you'll see attached there, materials to this bill. They have 3 standards, which they're asking schools to comply with. This is not new to schools, this has been imparted to them. Surveillance being one, access to your buildings is another one, and the latter one deals with communications. We're looking to find out from schools where they are on certain elements within those 3 standards. And that would be done by DOE through their database and through communicating with the schools and having that information submitted back to DOE. The other component which would come in from the schools, as I said earlier, would be the floor plans, the schematic diagrams. Those schematic diagrams would include certain components. Room numbers, absolutely important that we know what room something might be happening in. Building entries and exits, interior doors, where the main office is located, and locations for main power control, sprinkler shut-off controls, emergency generator, and utility shut-offs. You might ask why that's important. In Columbine, one of the issues was the sprinkler system went off and responders did not know where to go shut it off. And it's important that all these be marked on that schematic. This material would come in and be shared with DOE and on to Homeland Security, Emergency Management. And the purpose for this is now that responders would have the capability, looking in the screens and seeing that diagram we have today here with us. You can see that this bill is sponsored, not an amendment by myself, but also Representative Steve Shurtleff and Representative Dean Chandler. Both parties are in concurrence on it. That the purpose would be that there appear on these screens information so local, regional, and statewide responders would access information, which of course they download from Google Maps or whatever, the GPS stuff. But I also have that schematic visibility on that, so it'll be available to them. Today we have with us here Dr. Judy Killian from the Department of Education and Steve Tamburino, who is also the Deputy Director of Homeland Security New Hampshire here. And Steve and Judith both worked with me in developing this, and they're here. I'd like to ask them they would come forward and maybe give their appraisal of what we need to do on this bill.
Good afternoon. Judith Killian from the Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Steve Tamburino from the New Hampshire Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Ladies first. Okay. I'd like to support this in behalf of the Department of Safety. In moving forward, certainly concerns of school safety have been on the forefront in our agency for quite some time. And of course, in the post-Sandy Hook environment, they've been even more so. What we learned after Sandy Hook is that many school managers, school facility operators really did not really know how to move forward in increasing safety for their schools. School security is not something that was taken into consideration when many of our states' 500 K through 12 schools were designed. Many of them are historic and old. And the ability to make security improvements is simply just not something that an educator was ever designed to do. They're educators and they're not equipped to fortify their schools. Having said that, our agency pulled together a group of police officers represented from the New Hampshire Police Association, firefighters, fire marshal, people from our risk pools, Primex, property loss liability. We came up with suggestions, standards, and from that devised a self-assessment guide so schools can ask themselves what things they need to do. from that self-assessment, we developed a document with the 3 core capabilities that we believe all schools ought to have these abilities to do. And they are surveillance, the ability to see what your surroundings are, to perhaps prevent issues before they happen. We talked about access control. Many schools are open environments that people come and go from many entrances and exits. And we think that access should be controlled better, that there ought to be a vetting process before people enter schools. And lastly, emergency alerting, which is the ability of the school to request help from the community, whether it's police, fire, emergency services. And these systems need to be redundant, so if one fails, there is another one. And from this, we have developed these core security standards. Having said that, we are continuously working with the Department of Education in implementing a set of maps for emergency responders statewide. So responders who are coming to schools can not only understand the layout of the curtilage around the building, but they know where the entrances are, the exits are, and some of the key facilities operation systems. We think that compiling all this data in one place, whether it's with the state police dispatch, whether it's with 911, or even inside our own information analysis center, would allow this information to be used by first responders 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Therefore, we do support this amendment.
Thank you for the information.
Well, and the department sent out the information some time ago, and districts have been responding, but I understand only at about 50%. So you have 50% of the site plans or room configurations.
The mapping project is pretty much done. We have about 75 high schools in New Hampshire. The rest of them are middle and elementary. So we have produced mapping documents, and the maps are in 3 different types of elevations. One is designed for a large-scale operation that would involve multiple responders to see not just the school, but also the neighborhoods around in case there need to be evacuations. Then they get closer, we call them more tactical maps for special operations teams to be able to respond and go in and out of the school. And on top of those maps, we've overlaid the floor plans of the schools themselves. And many of the schools have responded. We're about 50% there. And I think in many cases, schools just don't have these floor plans. Schools that are very old, schools that are historic, and quite frankly, some schools that were never designed to be a school in the first place. They were someone's home 100 years ago. So these have to be developed and overlaid onto these maps.
Thank you. The bill, Representative Ladd has moved amendment 0454H. It has been seconded by Representative Bohm, and it is open for discussion, including asking questions of each other, asking questions of Representative Ladd, and asking questions of our guests. Representative Mata.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, so if I understand this right, you have a database now with the schematics of these floor plans for schools. So if an incident were to occur, a local agency, a local police agency or whatever, could immediately go online and pull that schematic down, is that correct?
Sir, that's our goal. That system isn't fully developed yet. We have built the database. We do have the maps done. The long-term goal is to embed this information in our information analysis center, along with state police dispatching, and perhaps the 911 center. So if in an emergency, a police department needed it, we could send it to them electronically. So that's a goal that we're working on. It will take, I think, a couple of years to bring that all into reality.
As a follow-up? In Hopkinton, where I live, would the police department have a hard copy of that already?
Your police department already does have a hard copy.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, with the electronic situation you have with these schematics, what's the security system for that, so that can only be accessed by the appropriate personnel.
So, I don't know how familiar you are with the office that I work in. It's a building over off of Smoky Bear Boulevard. It has walls that are about 15 miles thick of concrete and steel. It's got its own security system. It's probably one of the most securest buildings in the state. The people who work in this information analysis center have all undergone background investigations. They have security clearances. Some of them have top secret clearances. They have some very comprehensive software program that ensures security in all of our computing. Furthermore, these are not subject to 91A. These
I
maps.
don't know what that means.
91A would be the right to know.
Okay, thank you.
So this information is not public information to share. Now, much of the information used to develop these maps can be found on open source. You can go online and find some of them. You could perhaps go to the school and say, I want certain information. But when we have commingled it all together, and this bill will protect it from being disseminated outward. So we have some pretty elaborate security features within our building, as well as so do the state police dispatchers and the 9/11 dispatchers as well.
Thank you.
Open for the discussion. I saw Representative Harris and then Representative Cordell and Representative
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I have worked on the emergency planning for my own SAU. And I'm familiar with everything that you have spoken with, and it is effective, and it does work. Getting the plans together, working with the police department, the fire department, the state police, getting the information, and it worked actually in a relatively short order. This is in the town of Epping. I certainly commend the work that you've been doing, and urge you to continue.
Madam Chair, thank you both for being here. Thank you, Representative Laird, for including the amendment. I just want to make sure I have it correct in terms of sequence and how this would work. All of the inventory and security standards information first goes to the Department of Education, who will have and maintain a database. Shared database?
Oh, it's just shared.
Okay, and then you share that information. Is it an online sharing? How do you have any vision on how all this would come together?
No. I can tell you what we have been doing for the past 6 or 7 months. Historically, school districts have been sending their information to actual employees no longer at DOE. They have sent it over electronically. Some of them have been PDFs. Whatever they have, we would take them. So there were many different formats that this information was transmitted to DOE. We have a very close relationship with the Department of Education, and we have meetings on a regular basis, and they're often involved with our school planning initiatives. So they would bring the information over to us. Either they would send it to us electronically or bring it over in PDF files. So whatever it took, we would get that done, and then overlap it with the people over at the Emergency Communications Bureau, E911, and develop the maps. That's how we have been doing it. There has got to be a better way, I'm sure there is, but it's all a matter of the technology that we have, and not just the technology that we have, the technology the schools have themselves to communicate the information.
Representative,
Thank
do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. In terms of the 91A, I see that on page 2 in line 5, does this apply just to the Homeland Security database, or would this, since pretty much the same information is going to be over in the Department of Education database, would the same 91A restriction apply to the Department of Education database?
I really don't know the answer to that question. I think I would have to consult with the Attorney General on that matter.
But obviously, there's site plans with school building aid, that is information that's shared with the community. I don't know as you're asking for too much more beyond that, correct?
We're not, but I do know that there are some 91A exemptions that deal with the prevention of violent crime and terrorism. And this, and what we are doing with this information is just that. So I don't know where that hair would be split.
Representative Bulette, you have a question? Did you have a question? Representative Burke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is pretty much just something that I'd like to clear up. I like what you said about getting everything done, but how often will the information that you people have gathered, how often will that be updated? Because eventually things change.
It will be a living project. It will never really be 100% done, because every school, also, there's always something going on in the school. And to keep the database current, it's about our relationships with our schools. We do have field reps who work in schools and site planning and emergency procedures. So it means maintaining those relationships as well as maintaining our relationship with higher education as well. So the information is only as good as how often it's shared with us, but it would be an ongoing thing.
Representative Spain.
Thank you. My question is for Representative Ladd.
Okay, that's good.
I could see a lot of advantages to the original bill. Could you explain why you decided to abandon that inventory?
I haven't abandoned it. I believe that the components of the first part of doing that inventory, and there's a lot of different ways it's done. State of Montana did it in a period of 5 months, but to the tune of millions of dollars. Other states have done it randomly, as Dr. Joyce had mentioned. Some pick buildings which are in the bottom quartile of a subjective screening that's been done. A lot of ways of doing it, which is the best way. I'm not the pro in this, however, I believe that we do need to have a study done to find out what we have out there. We do know that well over half of our buildings are over 60 years old now, and we do have an inventory problem. And the internal report done in the year 2000 is outdated. We need to move forward. So no, it hasn't left my radar. However, the latter part here of the bill, which you see now, is extremely important. We talk about 75 high schools. We have over 470 buildings in this state. So we still have a lot of grade schools to do, a lot of middle schools to do. And the elements which are within these 3 standards, there's where information may become confidential information or be a 91A issue. And so this has to be worked out between DOE and Homeland Security. We have given them through this bill the path to do this. We have given them the statutory authority to do it. We will have. Now we need to let these 2 departments work together and move forward. And I will be coming back with discussions on the larger plan of the inventory for all schools.
Is there any sense to continue to have this, your amendment, tacked on to your original bill, but having the effective date pushed way out on your original bill?
I think,
So we get it done,
yeah, you're talking about keeping the original language in there?
the original bill.
The original language, I can tell you right now, probably wouldn't pass muster in the legislature from what I got from the other side of the wall, simply because we're talking about a financial note which is $10,000 in here for the first year. The way we're talking now, that financial note, and I haven't talked to Dr. Fillion or anybody at DOE regarding that, but it's quite possible we could be talking a really shrunken note. However, going the other way, we would be talking, you know, we've heard estimates anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 per building. Multiply that times, you know, let's say 10% of lowest quartile, you're already climbing to the neighborhood of $400,000. That would not move right now.
We don't need a fiscal note because we don't care in this committee.
But I do care about the safety and security of our buildings, and that's
And
what's
that's the
going on.
priority.
That's a priority.
Further discussion?
I don't care in this committee
Or
about
questions
financial
for
matters.
Representative Glad or yes? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll on amendment 04548. It is out to pass, made a motion moved by Representative Glad, seconded by Representative Bowman.
Representative Grassi?
Yes.
Representative Shaw, yes. Representative Gorman?
Yes.
Representative Burke?
Yes.
Representative Frazier?
Yes.
Representative Spain?
Yes.
Representative Rokas?
Yes.
Representative Schmidt?
Yes.
Representative Myler?
Yes.
Representative Bone?
Yes.
Representative Glad?
Yes.
Representative Greenmore?
Yes.
Representative Petrie?
Yes.
Representative Willett?
Yes.
Representative Dick?
Yes.
Representative Fidelli?
Yes.
Representative Grenier?
Yes.
Representative Harris?
Yes.
Representative Dial?
Yes.
19-0.
Okay, the amendment passes, and now I would ask for a motion on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move that HB 1132 as amended ought to pass. Second.
Glad would you like to speak?
I have no further discussion, Madam Chair.
Does anyone have any questions for Representative Miles?
I
Yes,
was
Representative Fidelli?
just asked that, continue looking at the 91A issues and the security issues around having database both in Department of Education and Homeland Security, and make sure that we've got everything airtight in that regard.
Yeah, and we'll do that. The state of Ohio, for example, has 91A issues, and anything that comes in on that security information from the buildings is underneath that statutory language.
Further discussion? Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, the clerk will call the roll on House Bill 1132, ought to pass as amended, and,
Representative Grassi?
Yes.
Representative Shaw, yes. Representative Gorman?
Yes.
Representative Burke?
Yes.
Representative Frazier?
Yes.
Representative Spain?
Yes.
Representative Rokas?
Yes.
Representative Schmidt?
Yes.
Representative Myler?
Yes.
Representative Bone?
Yeah.
Representative Glad?
Yes.
Representative Greenmore?
Yes.
Representative Petrie?
Yes.
Representative Willett?
Yes.
Representative Dick?
Yes.
Representative Cordelli?
Yes.
Representative Grenier?
Yes.
Representative Harris?
Yes.
Representative Guile?
yes.
19-0.
Consent.
Sure. It has been moved to put it on the consent calendar? No.
Yes, it is.
Well, there are FM bills on the consent calendar, so we can put it, so you are objecting to putting it on consent? All right, we'll go with that.
As it stands right now, Madam Chair, I doubt very seriously that there would be an FN attachment to this, the way it's written.
Well, Representative Willett is objecting to it, so.
Sure, that's fine.
All right, I'd like to thank Dr. Fillion and the gentleman from Homeland Security. Thank you very much for coming and sharing that information. It really helped move us along to better understand what we're getting into here. Thank you. All right, moving right along, House Bill 1140, establishing a commission to study merit-based free tuition for certain residents attending schools in the university system. Representative Fraser?
I'd like to ask, if I may, first to start with this, to be an amendment on this.
I wanted to bring an amendment forward, I don't have one with me now.
Well, the reason I ask is that I suggested that there might be an amendment that would establish the commission to study incentives for the group of students affected here by this bill, to continue their education at universities. Since we don't have that amendment, I would recommend IPL on this bill, and I'd like to speak to my motion.
Representative Fraser has moved ITL on 1140. Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Bohm has seconded. Representative Fraser, you are recognized to speak to your bill.
Yes, we have had a number of bills asking for in-state tuition, and all of these have been very hard fought, for the reason that, we simply cannot keep, reducing tuition at the university without
creating serious budget problems. So we have to be very, very careful, that there are very good reasons for this. I sympathize with the idea here of trying to sort of rescue those students who didn't do well in high school, but would still like to go to college, and to find incentives for them to go to college. But giving them free tuition, I think, is simply not the answer. I'm sympathetic because I raised a child like that, and I'd like to see them rescued in some way and continue their education. But rewarding students with free tuition who kind of blew off their high school, and while we don't give it to students who worked very hard in high school, this doesn't seem to me a statement that we as an education committee would make. So I do know.
Further discussion, Representative Spain?
Yes, I read this bill as doing the opposite, that it would reward people who are highly proficient. So it is rewarding people for working hard, and there is some feeling among our members that we should be rewarding people who work particularly hard. Am I misreading this?
Yes, but my understanding is that the proficiency was on the testing, not on the school record.
I see, okay, so, may I continue?
Yes.
So, yes, because I remember that there was some discussion about what happens to high achieving students who don't test well. If I could continue?
Yes, you can ask any questions, certainly.
Paragraph 2, I also, I'm thinking that there are some kind of weaknesses in this, and I think Representative Fraser had hoped to address these. It is a commission to study this device, and I'm wondering if the commission might look into some of her concerns or her ideas for taking this as an opportunity to explore the idea of merit-based tuition, whether it should be through testing or whether it should be through academic performance. And I am somewhat inclined to give the commission an opportunity to explore this option.
Thank you, Representative Spain. Representative Bullock?
I have two problems, and I don't have a problem with the ITF, by the way. Number one is I don't think we should be giving scholarships based on test scores only. I think it's more important to get scholarships on the ability for the parents and the people to pay. Second thing is we already have this available. There's a thing called New Hampshire Scholar, which does not give 100%, but it gives scholarships.
Thank you, Representative Bullock. Further discussion, Representative Cohen?
Yeah, just further on that, I agree with the ICAPS, I'm not saying. But it's students that do well, and whether or not they do well on tests in a lot of colleges, because I went through this years ago with my granddaughter, do not care about test results. A lot of them just want to know what subjects did you take, and whether they do rigorous subjects in the school, and that's what, and schools give scholarships for that. Maybe not our university system, but private schools do. And private schools have money, and they do give more scholarships than others. No, yeah, I mean, I think students that do well, they take the hard subjects, they do well on them, whether or not they got good SAT scores, and a lot of colleges don't care anymore what your SAT scores are. They look at what you did in your school, and did you take the top subjects your school, and the honor subjects and whatnot your school did, and what grades did you get on them. So, and then they do offer money and scholarships for that.
Thank you, Representative Bone. Further discussion from members of the committee? Okay, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll. The motion is ITL. Moved by Representative Fraser, seconded by Representative Bone.
Representative Grassi,
Yes.
Representative Shaw, yes. Representative Gorman?
Yes.
Representative Rachel, Burke? Representative Rachel?
Yes.
Representative Frazier? Yes. Representative Spain?
No.
Representative Rokas?
Yes.
Representative Schmidt?
Yes.
Representative Myler?
Yes.
Representative Gomes?
Yes.
Representative Glad?
Yes.
Representative Greenmore?
Yes.
Representative Petrie?
Yes.
Representative Willett?
Yes.
Representative Vick?
Yes.
Representative Corelli?
Yes.
Representative Grenier?
Yes.
Representative Harris?
Yes.
Representative Guile?
Yes.
18-1.
Should we move it on the consent calendar? Thank you.
It is coming. It's on the web. I didn't put the vote on, you can put the vote on the bottom. For June 18-1 and check consent.
All right, the next bill is House Bill 1208, relative to the number of first-year Polish students from New Hampshire high schools required to take remedial classes. House Bill 1208. Your motion, Representative Bowman.
Yeah, Madam Chair, would it be feasible to put this bill off to another hearing? Because I understand that the Shannon Reed from the community college does have an amendment that fixes this for the educational institutions, in other words, and university system and other issues that will make it, the bill better.
Well, did I see Shannon here? Were you able to find a member of the
No.
committee to submit?
Not since you and I spoke a short time ago.
I will put it in for the next one.
I had the language drafted up, so it shouldn't take long, but I don't have it prepared as a formal amendment.
All right. Do you want to start? Oh, postpone. Did you get the amendment done?
Well, I mean, wait, we can have the next Tuesday. I mean,
All right, we'll postpone House Bill 1208, postpone it, reschedule it for Tuesday, the 18th. Yes.
May I make a recommendation to whoever's gonna do this, to look into the statement about the, university and the university of North Carolina.
Right, that's part of the amendment.
Representative Leonard.
Madam Chair, if the amendment can address also this issue, I have an issue that we have a number of first-year students which have taken a significant break between the time that they graduate from high school and the time they go to college. And I would like to know, those students that are taking that break, if that's, I think we might be mixing apples and oranges here. And I am very concerned that our data, we may get data, but is it really, relevant?
All right. I agree. However,
I'm wondering if there's enough support for the bill and with the changes that are being discussed. Given that there are some who believe that our school achievement technique already indicates the weaknesses of our schools already.
you can respond.
Yes, thank you. One of the problems with, kneecap, which we've done now, one of the problems is with high school is, one of the reasons why the high school scores are so low is because kids at high school know these tests don't mean anything, and we've discussed that over the years with the DOE and whatnot, changing that, so it's making something meaningful, like maybe use the PSATs or SATs, or if they take it, that's still, that's an indication. But we learned over the years that I don't think Smarter Balance is going to change things when it gets to high school, because the kids are going to realize that doesn't help me any. I'm worried about taking the SAT next week or next month and that kind of stuff. So the high school tests that they give I don't think that's gonna show anything.
Further discussion?
Madam Chair, where this data is sorted by the high school the student went to, I think that due to my prior statement, I think the data we're gonna get, unless the college thinks this is real important to find this out, I don't think it's gonna be usable. And I think we're putting people through a process here which is, quite frankly, a waste of time. I'd like to make a motion to ITL the bill.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to ITL, House Bill 1208, moved and seconded by Representative Ladd and seconded by Representative Clark. Representative Boone,
That's fine.
is that okay?
Yeah, you don't have to wait.
All right, further discussion on 1208. Yeah, the testimony that I have written, people strongly oppose, what is the purpose of this bill? Why only public school? I mean, there would be a lot of problems.
Just a little further on that, I mean, I think in the last 3 sessions we've had this pretty much the same here.
Further discussion? Yes, Representative Kelly.
After the last session, thank you, Madam Chair, I had talked with Representative Roberts after the hearing, and we had talked about 4 criteria for a possible amendment that might answer whether they're straight from high school or returning, the total number of students by attending high school, remedial or developmental, and also change the reporting to the end of the semester or the academic year. So in light of those, I would vote against the ITL with the hope that we could get an amendment with addressing some of those issues.
Thank you for your testimony. Representative Brenner.
Yes, Madam Chair. I think we're still on the slippery slope here, because if we have a institution of higher education that wants to give students more of an opportunity to participate, who probably haven't got the level they should have, then it would be in their interest to offer remedial courses to that student. Whereas if they set strict guidelines, they simply wouldn't take them in the first place. And the problem, and I agree with Representative Ladd, what is the data going to show? That a school is being more embracing of less capable students and wants to give them an opportunity, or that indeed very many of our students come out of high school needing remedial? I used to teach statistics, and the data we would get out of here, I would tell my students, you need to question it.
Thank you, Representative Brenner.
And so I agree, Representative Graham, because that same thing happened to me. I left high school without taking the math, and I realized I needed it, and I took a course in it. Not that I knew what I was going to do, and that's a lot of cases. Kids graduate from high school, they maybe a couple of years, they do something and said, oh, I wish I would have taken that in high school, but now I want to be this. So they take a remedial course, and it's great that the community college is there to offer those courses. And so I don't think it's, in some cases, it's a problem because the school system didn't teach what was needed, but in other cases, it's the student's fault maybe for not taking what was needed, or what they eventually needed.
Right. Clerk, ready?
Yes.
Okay.
ITL. Representative Grassi?
Yes.
Representative Shaw, yes. Representative Gorman?
Yes.
Representative Burke?
Yes.
Representative Frazier?
Yes.
Representative Spain?
Yes.
Representative Rokas?
Yes.
Representative Schmidt?
Yes.
Representative Myler?
Yes.
Representative Bowman?
Yes.
Representative Ladd?
Yes.
Representative Greenmore?
Yes.
Representative Petrie?
Yes.
Representative Bullock?
Yes.
Representative Dick?
Yes.
Representative Cordelli? Representative Grenier?
Yes.
Representative Harris?
Yes.
Representative Guile?
Yes.
18-1.
Are we trying for the consent? Does anyone want to move consent?
Yes.
Representative Ladd? I think one of the things that troubled me about this particular bill, we know so much now about brain development, particularly in adolescents and young adults. And I do feel many of our students need that extra year. And for those children like my own, we could afford to send them to a year of PD, and I would love to know how many of the youngsters out of high school go to a year of PD at a private school. It's a developmental thing, and I think we should allow our students an extra year. House Bill 1377 is our next one, authorizing conferral of degrees by private entities.
Move ITL.
1377, Representative Shaw has moved ITL.
Second.
Second, Representative Rogers, and I would ask Barbara Shaw, Representative Shaw, if you would like to speak to the motion.
Yes, according to testimony that we received, that this is already covered in law. That RSA, I wasn't prepared, I'm sorry, RSA 188G, 21N, and 292 have worked with JALCAR to develop associated administrative rules to guide and align the day-to-day work of the Division of Higher Education, and that, the higher education already has the responsibility and authority and has exercised its authority recently in the case of the Intercoast College and Career Institute in Salem. So it's already in law and we don't need this added to our laws. Excuse me.
Further, the Representative Shaw moved ITL, who was the second? Oh, I'm sorry. Further discussion.
I would have made the
Seeing none, let's move forward, and the clerk will call the roll.
Representative Grassi?
Yes.
Representative Shaw, yes. Representative Foreman?
Yes.
Representative Burke?
Yes.
Representative Frazier?
Yes.
Representative Spang?
Yes.
Representative Rokas?
Yes.
Representative Schmidt?
Yes.
Representative Myler?
Yes.
Representative Bone?
Yes.
Representative Glad?
Yes.
Representative Greenmore?
Yes.
Representative Petrie?
Yes.
Representative Willett?
Yes.
Representative Dick?
Yes.
Representative Cordelli?
Yes.
Representative Grenier?
Yes.
Representative Harris?
Yes.
Representative Guile?
Yes.
19-0. I move consent.
Representative Shaw moved consent. Any problems? Seeing none, it goes on consent.
That's it, the rest of yours.
House Bill 1388, relative to student religious liberties.
I'd just like to make a comment.
Okay,
I'm not
Representative Bone?
gonna make a motion, but the federal guidelines are already, okay, not needed. New Hampshire does not have the problem that other states have had, what has been brought up is what's happened in other states, and New Hampshire law also is okay, so I don't think this bill is needed. The School Board Association said the one that needed also.
Yeah, I think that most of the testimony is to that effect. Further discussion, Representative Grenier.
Madam Chair, thank you. I'm not making a motion, but I am going to say that this seemed a response to a specific local matter, which ultimately was resolved locally, which is what we hope should happen anyways.
I think it's ours at 189:1 E.
Yes.
What covers it?
Yes. Further discussion? We do not have a motion on the floor.
I'll move ITL.
Representative Shaw has stepped forward. And moved ITL on House Bill 1388. Is there a second? Representative Grassi. Further discussion? It appears that it is not necessary relative to the conversation and discussion. Representative Shaw will call the roll.
Representative Grassi,
Yes.
Representative Shaw, yes. Representative Gorman,
Yes.
Representative Burke,
Yes.
Representative Frazier,
Yes.
Representative Spang,
Yes.
Representative Rokas,
Yes.
Representative Schmidt,
Yes.
Representative Myler,
Yes.
Representative Bone,
Yes.
Representative Ladd,
Yes.
Representative Greenmore,
Yes.
Representative Petrie,
Yes.
Representative Gillette,
Yes.
Representative Dick,
Yes.
Representative Cordelli,
Yes.
Representative Grenier,
Yes.
Representative Harris,
Yes.
Representative Guile,
Yes.
19-0, move consent.
Representative Shaw has moved consent. Any comments with that? Okay.
I want you to know I wake up in the middle of the night when I can't sleep and I go, Representative Grassi, Representative.
So they're counting sheep.
But tell them, Barbara, I never answered.
And then I write a blurb. ITL.
Make it clear that I never answered.
All right. How about now moving on, and after this one, we'll take a little stretch break. House Bill 1397, establishing a committee to study whether the Department of Education is operating within its statutory authority.
You want these votes, right?
What was it for discussion? Yes, Representative Fidel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that there are some issues raised by this. I think I would have preferred to see it maybe looking at some of the duties of the Legislative Oversight Committee. But as with Bill that was discussed this morning, I'm concerned about any department that is signing agreements with third parties that obligate the state beyond maybe statutory requirements or approvals that are in place. So that part of it interests me.
Representative Shaw.
Yes, does anyone know, Dr. Joyce had said that he supports the legislation and an amendment which would add some committee membership. Does anybody know, has Dr. Joyce talked to anyone? Representative Ladd, has he told you? Anything?
I have not thought about this.
What is this, 1534?
No,
No.
1397.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm not perfect.
What?
Still counting sheets.
Still counting members.
I'm not perfect.
Dr. Joyce say about this?
No, it was,
This is another one.
Never mind.
I'm sorry.
I move ITL.
all right, the bill, Representative Mauer has moved ITL. Is there a second?
I would second it.
Representative Schmidt has seconded. Further discussion? All right. Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Representative Grassi,
Yes.
this is on ITL.
Yes.
Representative Shaw, yes. Representative Gorman?
Yes.
Representative Burke?
Yes.
Representative Frazier?
Yes.
Representative Spang?
Yes.
Representative Rokas?
Yes.
Representative Schmidt?
Yes.
Representative Miley?
Yes.
Representative Bone?
No.
Representative Ladd?
Yes.
Representative Greenmore?
Yes.
Representative Petrie?
No.
Representative Gillette?
Yes.
Representative Dick?
No.
Representative Cordelli?
No.
Representative Grenier?
Yes.
Representative Harris?
No.
Representative Guile?
Yes.
14-5.
Will there be a minority report represented from?
Glenn, you wanna like that?
Maybe we can combine efforts.
Glenn's on tap.
Will you write the minority report? The other one, no, prevailing. Pardon? So it goes on the regular. All right, let's just stand up and take a break and maybe open the window for 2 minutes. Yeah, please. It is, yeah, the heating system is working beautifully.